This is lesson 2.2, find slope and rate of change. It's interesting to me that it says find slope and rate of change because slope is rate of change. To say slope or to say rate of change is the exact same thing. So I could call it slope or I can call it the rate of change, and I'm talking about the exact same thing. And here's what we're talking about. We have rise over run. That's one way that people talk about slope. You have delta y over delta x, which just means change in y over change in x. Sometimes you see that in your science class. We also see m. M is the symbol for slope, especially in math. The most common formula, though, is m equals y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1. And so this is the slope formula, and notice that we're using 2 points. We have one point that's x1, y1, and we have one point that's x2, y2. So if you know the 2 points, then you just plug it into the slope formula, and then you've got your slope. So let's try an example of this. Okay, so we want to find the slope, and we have our 2 points. So I know that y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1 is going to be my slope. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and label these so we know exactly what we're talking about. This is x1, this is y1, this is x2, this is y2. So when I plug them into my equation, y2 is 5, y1 is 1, x2 is 3, and x1 is negative 2. Now it's important that I left that negative with the 2 so that you can see what's going to happen. In my numerator, 5 minus 1 is 4. In the denominator, I have 3 minus negative 2, and when I have two negatives, it becomes plus. So this becomes 3 plus 2, which is 5. So in this problem, I found the slope, and the slope is 4 over 5, or you can say it is 4/5. And keep in mind, slope is the same thing as a rate of change. Alright, so for the next example, find the slope and tell if it rises, falls, is horizontal, or is vertical. If a slope rises, then it will be positive. If a slope falls, then it will be negative. If a slope is horizontal, then it will be equal to 0. 0, see how horizontal has a 0 here and a 0, so that's how I remember horizontal is 0. And vertical will be undefined. I didn't write that very well. Okay, so we're either going to have a positive slope, a negative slope, a slope that's equal to 0, or a slope that's undefined. So if I do this example right here, where I have x1 and y1 and x2 and y2, when I plug into my slope formula, I have 1 minus 1 divided by 3 minus negative 5. 1 minus 1 over 3 minus negative 5. So 1 minus 1 is 0. 3 minus negative 5, 2 negatives makes a positive, so this becomes 3 plus 5, which is 8. And 0 divided by 8, which that's not a very pretty 8, I'm sorry about that. 0 divided by 8 equals 0. Anytime the 0 is on top, it equals 0. So that means that this line is horizontal because its slope is 0. Now let's try a couple more examples. For this problem, I have negative 6, 0, and I have 2, negative 4. This is x1, y1, x2, y2. My slope will be negative 4 minus 0. Negative 4 minus 0, these two go together, divided by 2 minus negative 6, so these two go together, and then simplify this. Negative 4 minus 0 is negative 4, 2 minus negative 6 becomes 2 plus 6, which is 8. Negative 4 divided by 8 does reduce, and it becomes negative 1/2. So this slope is negative, which means that the line is going to fall. And when they say fall, they mean it's going to fall to the right like that. For the next example, I'm going to have y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Negative 1 minus 6 over 4 minus 4 is negative 1 minus 6 is negative 7. 4 minus 4 is 0. This is undefined. Anytime that the 0 is in the bottom, it's undefined. And some people think of this as like it's an egg underneath a basket and it gets crushed, so it's undefined. If your slope is undefined, it means that your line is vertical. A vertical line just goes straight up and straight down. Okay. Sometimes lines rise, sometimes they fall, sometimes they're horizontal, sometimes they're vertical. But if I have two lines and I'm going to compare the slopes, lines that are parallel have slopes that are equal. So they're equal, or sometimes you might just say that means they're the same. All right. Perpendicular lines, and I use this symbol for perpendicular, it's an upside down T. Perpendicular lines have slopes that are opposite, reciprocals. So if it's opposite, that means positive becomes negative and negative becomes positive. And if it's a reciprocal, that means you take a fraction and you flip it over, so the numerator becomes the denominator and the denominator becomes the numerator. So let's look at some examples of this. Okay, so for line 1 and line 2, let's look at line 1 and we'll do its slope first. Okay, so I have negative 1 minus 2 over 0 minus negative 2. So negative 1 minus negative 2 is negative 3. 0 minus negative 2 becomes 0 plus 2, which is 2. So the slope for line 1 is negative 3/2. Alright, what about line 2? For line 2, my slope is 3 minus negative 1 over 2 minus negative 4. Both of these become plus 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 plus. So this slope is 4 over 6. 2 plus 4 is 6, 3 plus 1 is 4. Okay, now it's really important to go ahead and reduce this. 4 over 6 reduces to 2 over 3. So now, let's compare these two slopes. Look at this slope, and look at this slope, and let's see how they compare. Line 1 has a negative slope, line 2 has a positive slope, so they are opposites. Line 1 has a slope of 3 over 2, line 2 has a slope of 2 over 3. That's a reciprocal. So these two numbers, negative 3/2 and positive 2/3, are reciprocals and they're opposites. So that means that line 1 and line 2 are perpendicular. Line 1 and line 2 are perpendicular because their slopes are opposite reciprocals. If these two slopes are the same, then that would mean our lines would be parallel. And there is a third option. If you have two completely different slopes that they don't match up in any way, then you just say the lines are not parallel, they're not perpendicular, they're just neither. Okay, some of your questions will look like this. They'll say find the average rate of change, And you know at this point in the video that average rate of change means slope. So coming across the words average rate of change is just another way to say slope. And we talk about average rate of change more in the real world, because in this case we're actually going to talk about our x's in terms of hours and our y's in terms of dollars. So let's get our slope first, and then we'll put the rest of the answer together. So the slope, 30 minus 12 over 5 minus 2. 30 minus 12 is 18. 5 minus 2 is 3. 18 divided by 3 is 6. Okay? Remember that our dollars go with the top and our hours go with the bottom. So this means $6 per hour. So the average rate of change for this information was 6, and with our x being hours and our y being dollars, that means $6 per hour. That's kind of like when you get paid at your job. Some people make $6 per hour, which is not a very good amount of money to make. Okay, here's the problem on your own. I want you to find the slope of this problem. Also tell me if it rises, or if it falls, or if it's horizontal, or if it's vertical. Okay? And if you mess up, remember you can always try again, over and over and over.